Hi YouTube, welcome to another edition of Horror Hands, and for this video I'm going to go through 15 horror movies from the 1950s that I think are awesome and that I'd recommend to you. And I'm going to dedicate this video to Rob Gray from the Wacky World Lounge. Me and him had a conversation about this video a long time ago, and I know it's one that he wants to see, and he's been encouraging me to do it, so finally got round to doing it. So Rob, this is for you and anyone else who's interested in movies from this particular decade. And it's an interesting decade as well. It's a time when you can tell that there's a strong focus on space exploration and scientific exploration. A lot of these movies have a very kind of space and sci-fi feel to them. And it's also quite I think it's an appealing window into time. There's something quite charming about the 1950s and that particular period in time. But anyway, I digress. So the first recommendation is 20 Million Miles to Earth, Ray Harryhausen classic. This is a really fun monster movie, really enjoyable film. It's about this soldier. It's like a soldier who's in the Navy or something, and he finds this this crate, and it's like just got this gooey liquid in, but it slowly grows into this monster on the front. And it starts out as just a little creature. It's kind of cute, and then it grows to epic proportion and starts destroying parts of Italy. And there's some really good stop motion scenes of it destroying buildings, and then there's a really impressive scene of the stop motion creature fighting a stop motion elephant. So really good example of stop motion special effects. Really enjoyable film. So that's the first one. Next one is Attack of the Crab Monsters. This is very much a 1950s B movie, but if you know me, you know I love any kind of creature that comes out of the sea or the water. So these crab monsters are right up my street. It takes a while for them to come into the movie, and they're not the most intimidating of creatures, but I always marvel at seeing them. I always enjoy seeing them on the screen, so definitely wanted to give these a mention. So that's that one. Right, next up is the Black Scorpion. So a giant scorpion monster terrorizes the city, and it has a lair beneath the city where these humans have to go down into and explore it and find a way to destroy the giant killer scorpion. Now what's particularly impressive about this movie is it's stop motion, and if you think about a scorpion anatomically, I imagine that's quite a difficult creature to create with stop motion. There's a lot of points of articulation and things like that, but they do a great job in this movie. It looks fantastic. It has a lot of screen time as the movie goes on, so really cool film. Right, next one, possibly the most famous film on the list, Creature from the Black Lagoon. One of my favourites of the Universal monster movies, and again I love anything that comes out of the water. But this film still looks great today. The creature looks awesome. I love the setting of the film. I love the underwater shots. Really great film. I'm sure I don't need to say too much about this one because, like I say, it's probably one of the most popular films on the list and certainly one of the most famous. So that's that one. Couldn't do the list without it. Now this next one, this one's a little bit different from the monster movies that we've had so far. This is Diabolique, French film, I believe. And this is more of like a creepy mystery. This woman, she lives and works at this school, and I think her husband, he's like the headmaster of the school, and he's horrible. He's really abusive to her and all that kind of thing. And then later on in the film, when she can take no more, her and her friend kill the abusive husband, and they dispose of the body in an outdoor pool at the school. It's like all dirty water and that, you can't see inside it. So they do that, and then there comes a time when they have to drain the pool to clean it. So she's all freaking out knowing that the body's down there and he's going to get discovered. But when they drain the pool, the body's gone. And that's all I'm going to say. I haven't ruined anything so far, but I can't say any more. But it's a really good twisty-turny, creepy film, and it keeps you hooked all the way through. Interestingly, Alfred Hitchcock originally wanted to turn this into a movie, but he didn't get to the rights in time. But that kind of gives you an idea of the caliber of this movie's premise if Hitchcock wanted to get involved. So that's Diabolique. Next up is Earth versus the Flying Saucers, and this is for me one of those real like quintessential 1950s movies. Spacemen coming down to Earth, government agents and scientists trying to work out who they are and what they want, and that kind of thing. And then at the end of the film, the aliens make an appearance, and they have like these cool space suits and these like big silver bucket head kind of things. It's always a film that I've really enjoyed. Has a lot of 50s charm to it. So that's Earth versus the Flying Saucers. Next up, we got some Hammer horror with horror of Dracula. Christopher Lee's first outing as the Count. A movie that I've always loved. It's one of my favourite Hammer movies. It's one of my favourite 50s movies. I love the colour of this. I love the lavish colours and all the reds and that kind of thing. And interestingly, I was thinking about this film. It's very different in tone from most of the other 50s movies on this list. Whereas they are kind of, like I say, quite sci-fi focused and deal with a lot of like futuristic technology. This one kind of goes the other way, and it's still set in the Gothic castles in like the Carpathian Mountains or wherever it is. But an amazing film, one of my favourite movies. Couldn't do the list without that one. Next up is I Was a Teenage Frankenstein, another one of the real kind of quintessential 50s horror movies. Very tame by today's standards, but still a really enjoyable horror movie. In this one, this young man, he gets killed in a car accident, I think it is, and then this morally questionable doctor takes his body and turns him into this teenage Frankenstein, and he goes around terrorising his high school peers. So like I say, just a really enjoyable 50s horror movie. Next up is I Was a Teenage Werewolf. Probably a little bit more entertaining than Frankenstein. This one's got a fun plot. It's this teenager, and he's like a proper juvenile delinquent. I think he has like all these anger issues, if I remember correctly. And he goes to this like doctor, this shrink, for help, and he gives him like this serum. He injects him with this serum, which doesn't help at all. It turns him into a werewolf. So as well as being an angry juvenile delinquent, he's now a werewolf, and he's terrorising his high school peers as well. But again, really fun, enjoyable, very 50s type horror movie. I was only going to put one of these I Was a Teenage Monster movies on the list, but they're both so enjoyable, I couldn't leave them off. Next one is The Incredible Shrinking Man. So this scientist is messing around doing something, and as a result he starts to slowly shrink day by day and can't stop it. So he just gets smaller and smaller, and then by the end of the film he's fighting off what to him are like giant cats and giant spiders. It's a really entertaining movie, and the special effects in this in particular are really impressive. They still hold up really well today. Especially the scene when he's fighting off the giant spider with the drawing pin, whatever it is, the tack needle thing. Really impressive in terms of the effects. It's kind of got that just sort of 50s charm to it, but really does deliver in terms of the way it's shot and the way it's filmed. Next up, another very famous film, Invasion of the Body Snatchers. So these alien pod things come to Earth and they take over people's bodies, so you don't know who's human and who's not. Only Kevin McCarthy knows what's going on, and he has to try and convince people about what's going on and not get turned into a pod person himself. This is an excellent film, possibly one of the best made films from the 50s. And whereas a lot of the movies are all kind of quite charming and sometimes a bit camp, this one plays it seriously but effective, and it's still a pretty scary watch today. It's injected with a level of paranoia which is still gets you every time you watch it. So Yeah, really, really excellent film. Highly recommend Invasion of the Body Snatchers. Next up, some more Ray Harryhausen goodness with It Came From Beneath the Sea. This one, the creature, don't see it all that much in this movie. However, it does have the scene, the iconic scene where the giant octopus wraps itself around the bridge. That's a really cool scene, worth watching just for that bit alone. But the movie itself is pretty decent as well. So I didn't want to leave that one off. Next up is It Came From Outer Space. This movie I haven't seen for such a long time, and personally I don't remember hardly anything from it. However, I wanted to give it a mention because this is a film that really inspired John Carpenter, my favourite director, to make movies. He's mentioned this film a few times and said about how he went to see it at the cinema, and it was the film that made him say that he wanted to make movies as well. So any film that inspires John Carpenter, to me, should get a recommendation. So that's why that one's on the list. Next up is Night of the Demon. Really creepy, effective movie about this guy. I think he's like a private investigator, and if I remember right, he kind of is investigating this like religious cult, and he defrauds them or he rumbles them in some way, and the cult leader says to him, for ruining what we do, a demon is going to come for you in the next 2 or 3 days. And this private detective guy, he's skeptical, he doesn't believe it, but there is an increasing feeling of dread and fear which builds up through the movie to the climax. It's really well done, really effective, creepy film. The studio actually wanted the demon creature to be shown in the film a lot more, but the director Jacques Tourneur, he insisted that it wasn't going to be shown, not until like the final frame of the film. And me personally, I would have liked to have seen the creature in it a lot more because I'm very visual. If there's a monster in it, I just say get it out there and show it. And especially this one, it's a great looking creature. But on the other hand, I can see what he was doing, and I respect what he did, and the end product does work because it's really creepy. And in this one, it's what you don't see that makes it work. So I can see why he did that. Great movie. And the last movie on this list is Tarantula. So I love my giant bug movies, and this is one of my favourites. This is probably the first sort of 50s giant bug movie that I ever saw. So in this one, this guy is messing around scientifically in some way, and it results in a giant tarantula. And the tarantula, it's a real tarantula, just filmed doing what it does, but then it's kind of like blown up and superimposed or whatever onto the screen to look giant. So it's just wandering around on the landscape. It's a really cool film. What always makes me smile in this film though is how nobody ever sees it coming, because it's shot almost on like an entirely flat desert landscape, and there's scenes where like people are driving and then suddenly slam on the brakes and behold this giant tarantula, and you think, well, you'd have seen it coming for miles, it's 50 foot high. But anyway, I'm being very picky on that. Great movie, really entertaining film, and if I remember right, it was Clint Eastwood's first movie. He has a small role playing a fighter pilot, so worth checking out for that reason, I guess. So that is 15 horror movies from the 1950s that I think are awesome. So let me know what you thought of that, guys. What movies from the 50s do you like? I'm always interested to know, and like checking out what you guys recommend. Rob Gray, Wacky World Lounge, I hope that was okay for you. And everyone else, I hope you enjoyed this video. So thank you for watching, and stay tuned for more videos.